haven't had any feedback that this is wearing thin yet, have we? Oh, dearie me. I still find it funny.
Well, at least one of us finds it funny. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special edition of Chilling with the Villain, the classic wrestling review podcast. Why is today so special? You may be asking yourself. Well, here on Chilling with the Villain, we bring you the best guests from the world of professional wrestling. And today is no different because today we are blessed with the presence of the very famous Harvey Wippleman, Downtown Bruno, one of the most famous managers of all time. Today, he'll be joining the show and he'll be talking to myself and Mr. Sam. So we're very excited for our interview with Harvey Wippleman. Make sure you stick around to listen to that. Sam, how are you doing and how was your Halloween?
Not too bad, thank you. I didn't get up to much. I hid, like the misanthrope that I am, from the little kids and just worked on some titles. No, actually, I watched Poltergeist. That's Halloween-y, right?
Yeah, that's in
I'm doing the right thing. There we go.
You can watch, like, as long as you watch a movie, that's something, I think.
I watched it with my friend, and she's like, loves the classic movies. So I sat there, and I dared say, I just sat there and went, I actually think Paranormal Activity is better. And she went mental. So I don't know if I lost a friend, but I did have a wonderful time.
Good. I'm glad. Well, that's what Halloween's all about.
Exactly. And what did you get up to? I mean, we can still see it on your face if you're on the Patreon and you're watching.
Yeah, I've still been trying to wipe this makeup off my face. Not too many times in my life I've had makeup on, but I did have a bunch on for Halloween for my Bull Nakano outfit, which I did post on Instagram. Got a lot of love on Instagram. People thought that my Bull Nakano outfit was just hilarious. But that's good fun. You know, every year I try and dress up. Like always making a thing. As a kid, I didn't really have many cool costumes, or like I didn't really have that. So I think as I've got older, I've been like, I've got to dress up on Halloween, even if it's just to dress up and take a cool picture. So
we also didn't really do it in the UK.
Yeah,
at
not
that
so
age
much.
as well. There was that factor as well.
Not so much. And I don't even know how I decided on Bull Nakano, because I was thinking, who am I going to be this year? Who am I going to be this year? And I was thinking, you know, what could I do with my hair? Then I was like, oh, I could like spike my hair up. And then I was like, oh, Bull Nakano. So yeah, I pieced the outfit together. People on Instagram really liked it, and people are asking me to wrestle like that now. So
oh no,
maybe one day. No, dude, I was washing my hair for hours with the green hairspray in there, and
yeah,
terrible. But no, all in all, Halloween, very fun time, and of course we're hot off the heels of our Halloween Havoc 1997 episode. So if you haven't listened to that yet, please go back and watch that.
Yep, seems like quite a popular one.
It does.
In the downloads, yeah.
Some people
resonated
saying
with people.
The best episode ever. So we shall see. Sam, do you have any questions for us this week?
We have one from The Outsider from Instagram.
It's the Outsider. Is it not?
The Outsider? What is he from so. Canada? Well,
I could be way off.
Is pronounced out, yeah.
I think it's
still pronounced out, isn't it?
Is it?
Yeah.
Why would you not just write out?
Like it's a spelling pun. So it's still pronounced The Outsider, but it's A-U-T.
Oh. Well, maybe I'm wrong. Let me try and make it up to him for getting his name wrong and answer his question.
The Outsider asks, or the Outsider asks, if you could have one celebrity wrestle a superstar, who would it be?
I think we might have spoken about this before. I think if any celebrity is going to get into wrestling, or at least have a match, maybe a WrestleMania match or SummerSlam, for me, it's got to be Conor McGregor. I think that would be the ultimate person or celebrity to have in WWE, because when you have celebrities, you want them to have some kind of athletic background. You know what I mean? I don't know if you remember, like in 1998, WCW brought in Jay Leno and he was doing arm ringers on Hogan. It was just like, ugh, what is this? You know, but at least if it's an athlete, like I think that's why Logan Paul works so well, because obviously people have seen him fight and everything else before.
Yeah.
But Conor McGregor is literally the perfect combination. He's got the fame, massively famous. Everyone knows who he is. He's got the athletic background. People know he's a badass. And most importantly, he's charismatic as hell and can cut promos and talk trash. So for me, I think Conor McGregor would be the ultimate get celebrity for WWE. What about you, Sam?
I feel like there's some scope for interpretation of the question as well, because also I wonder if the outsider is interested in who the superstar would be who would face Conor McGregor in your situation. So that's how I'm interpreting the question. I think I would just like Jimmy Kimmel versus Nick Gage in my backyard.
I'm not sure if that's what he was getting at, but yeah, that could happen. I'm sure that could be arranged. In terms of opponents,
for charity,
maybe.
Doing it for the kids, yeah.
To put a ring in your backyard, or do you even need a ring? Maybe not. In terms of opponents for Conor McGregor, well, it's just got to be the top guys, really, right? Roman Reigns. Think about that. How that would draw, like Conor McGregor versus Roman Reigns, dude. Like that could be the biggest box office of all time, right? Jeez, I would have thought so. Yeah, I'm kind of all for the celebrities getting involved in wrestling, especially more so in recent years. We've had these guys just absolutely killing it, So yeah, I would fingers crossed it will happen one day, because I don't think Conor, wants to fight again, but I'm not sure it's going to happen. So get himself in a WWE ring. That's what I say.
I feel like these celebrity promotional crossover things are definitely handled better now than when they were, because like they've had the Jackass guys on in the early 2000s who didn't really like take the wrestling part seriously, kind of made a mockery of it.
Yeah.
And they're just the first one that comes to mind. I'm sure there's others, Napoleon Dynamite. But I feel like, yeah, Logan Paul, Bad Bunny, they're doing they're really good job. I think
they really
nowadays are. It's the best kind of era for these these crossovers, whatever you call them.
Absolutely. Maybe one day we'll do a top 5 celebrities in wrestling, which kind of brings me to my next point. I don't know if people have been paying attention to our YouTube channel at The Villain Pod, but we have been putting up some longer form content. Obviously, everyone knows we do the reels or the shorts or the TikToks, whatever you want to call them. But for the last couple of weeks, I've been putting up longer form content. I put up the top 5 spookiest wrestlers and the top 5 comedic wrestlers that are actually funny on YouTube. They're both videos that they're over 5 minutes long, kind of the same as the reels, but obviously much longer. And people seem to really enjoy them. They haven't got loads of views yet. Yeah, our shorts taken off like crazy. Like the first Santino Marella short that we put out across the 3 platforms, it's got way over 1 million views now, which is pretty insane. But we'd like to have those numbers on our YouTube videos as well. So please hit us up on there. They're at The Villain Pod. And I'll continue to make them.
Yeah, and please subscribe, because I've noticed, I was looking at the analytics, and now we're getting more subscribers. More people are going back and having visibility of some of our older videos. So you made a really good point about Kurgan very early on when we started the podcast as a video. And I've noticed people are now watching like our back catalog of videos. So if you haven't subscribed, do so, and you might find some other videos that haven't been like served to you. You have to kind of like search out for yourself, but they're still pretty interesting. So definitely subscribe to us if you're also interested in that.
Yeah, you know what, Sam? Speaking of top 5s, do you know what time it is?
It's time.
It's time. It's time for Marty and Sam's top 5. Harvey Wippleman managed a lot of giants over the years. One of the first people that comes to mind is Sid Vicious, Psycho Sid. And I was always so impressed with Psycho Sid's physique. I mean, that was clearly the main thing he had going for him. Just looked like an absolute animal. And we talk a lot on the podcast about different wrestlers' physiques and which ones, we admire and everything, what maybe we aspire to be like. So for today's top 5, I figured we would do the top 5 greatest physiques of all time. In wrestling, that is.
In wrestling, yeah. And please don't worry, we're not going to stop talking about people's physiques just now we've done this top 5. I think it's going to be something that we keep doing.
So trying to put this list together, very, very difficult for me because I'd write 5 and then I'd be like, oh, what about him? What about him? What about her? And then I'd have a list of like 20 different people. So my list, it's not, I'm not saying these are the best physiques of all time. I'm saying these are my favorite physiques of all time. That's 2 different things, right? That makes sense, huh?
Absolutely, totally. Mine's similar. I thought, like, you like physiques for different things.
Yeah.
So, for example, my list, I would say these are more like top 5 physiques that I would like, or like.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah. Well, thinking of that, I've always wanted a physique like Randy Orton's, but he's not on my list. I'm kind of going in the middle between best and favorite because the best is all debatable anyway. And of course, we're not bodybuilding experts or anything else like that, or bodybuilding judges, are we? But I guess today we are. Do you want to go first, Sam, or you want me to go first?
You're going to be annoyed with my list. So I think I should do mine second so we don't ruin your top 5, which will never make a video when you're going to be in a bad mood if you go second.
Okay, here it goes. First things first, honorable mention, Jade Cargill. Now, I feel like we have to mention a woman during this because over the years, there's been so many different women with really impressive physiques. So I don't think it'd be fair for us just to all have men, but Jade Cargill, just what do I need to say? Like, did she do bodybuilding before wrestling? I know she played basketball. I'm not sure if she ever competed in bodybuilding contests or not, but she looks like if she did, she could probably do very well. And I think you see her on TV, especially since she's been in WWE, and you're just instantly like, wow. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like you can't take your eyes off you. Just like, it's so impressive. And, I think she deserves a shout out. So she's my honorable mention. But coming in at number 5, the Texas Tornado, Kerry Von Erich. Now, people on this show know that we're fans of the Von Erich or the Von Erichs. We're very excited for the Iron Claw movie to come out next month. And Kerry was always my favorite. And it was pretty much just because his insane physique. He just looked like an action figure and so big. And I was looking through some pictures earlier and I was like, whoa, there's some points that he's even bigger than I remember him, but just so cut and so vascular at the same time. And like 8-pack hard abs, just like, dude, like how did he, I was going to ask, how did he get a physique like this? But he just, especially being on the road wrestling, I don't understand how someone could, get the physique like this and then keep it as well.
Maintaining it is the real question. Yeah. Wow.
When you're on the road, you got limited food options. You're like, oh, okay, I've got to eat at Waffle House now and wherever it might be, or fast food, trying to find gyms everywhere. To get a physique like that, it looks like he was, smashing his macros and training at least twice a day. Do you know what I mean? Like, just absolutely unbelievable physique. And I always just thought, man, with that physique, it's such a shame that Kerry Von Erich couldn't have become a bigger star in the WWF when he was there for I believe he was only there for a couple of years. It seemed like obviously he had his problems, his issues, his demons, and that kind of held him back. But just looking at him, you think, that guy, he should be world champion. So that's my number 5.
For sure. So I was going to say, for the Iron Claw movie, that's going to be the biggest thing that I'm going to have to just like overlook for the sake of enjoying the movie. Right. I don't have to get the person to, like Jeremy Allen White's probably going to do a very good job with the emotion and the acting part, which is number 1. But there's no way anyone can look like Kerry,
replicate that physique. Right. Yeah, that's a little much to ask.
Yeah, a little bit too much to ask. Sorry, carry on.
Coming in at number 4. Now, this man, I'm not suggesting he has the best physique of all time, but I feel like he gets no love and never really gets mentioned when this sort of conversation happens. My number 4 is Paul Roma. Now, you are looking at me. Do you remember Paul Roma, Sam?
I remember the episode. Yes. I didn't know who he was until we covered him. Yeah, he looked insane.
So Paul Roma, he was part of Power and Glory, which is in the WWF, and he also wrestled for WCW. And actually, at one point, he was being pushed as one of the Four Horsemen. So clearly, people had confidence in him and thought he could be a big star. And just looking at him, why wouldn't they? He had just an absolutely insane physique. And yeah, you talk about that power and glory. We reviewed it on the show before. You watch him back, SummerSlam 1991. I'm just watching him like, oh my, like, how is this again? How is this guy not in the main event? And I know it's more, a main event wrestler is more than just a physique, but Paul Roma was a good wrestler as well, I thought, at least. And just, dude, the thickness, and it's just a combination of the thickness and the vascularity and the abs and the chest and the traps and the lats. It's just, and the legs. It's like, oh boy, like, you know, all the wrestlers on this list, you don't see wrestlers like this anymore. And it's probably for good reason, you know. Like, these sort of looks are kind of unobtainable. And I've never really been a massive body guy, but I also, you know, want to take care of my health and everything else. And being that big and that lean, I never thought it was actually that good for wrestling. Like, you can't live the lifestyle of a bodybuilder, which is already a full-time job, and be a pro wrestler. And what you'll find is a lot when guys are that big or that lean, they tend to get injured a lot more in the ring. And one of my friends once, he was a bodybuilder, and I remember he got really lean at one point, big jack dude, and he said how much it hurt taking back bumps because he just had such little fat on his body. So he found it really difficult, and he's like, right, I've got to change my diet and put like a little bit more fat on. Like, not going to try and wrestle at 5% body fat, whatever it is. But yeah, my number 4, Paul Roma. My number 3, the Ultimate Warrior. It's got to be said, right?
Right.
I mean, he pretty much did get his main event run based on his look. Of course, you know, there was his intensity, his odd and quirky charisma and everything else, but the combination of the insane physique and the big 80s hairstyle and of course the face paint just looked like a superhero. And the one thing I always noticed about the Warrior, especially when I was younger, was just like, obviously how big and vascular he is, but how red he would be as well, like super red and super oiled up and just got those veins pumping. It was just like, yeah, like his physique was, you know, what's the line? Oh, he had
born to be an action figure.
He was. Yeah. I was going to say he had muscles on muscles, you know, just like he has muscles in places that we just don't even have. So got to shout out the Ultimate Warrior. Number 2, this man, you know, I'm a fan of. My number 2 is Lex Luger.
Mm-hmm.
Again, another guy you could claim got where he needed to be because of his physique and got pushed to the top spot because of how impressive he looked. Of course, when he came to the WWF, they turned it into his gimmick. What was it? The narcissist, and his whole entrance where he would pose with the mirrors and he was in love with himself. And
I like that.
I'll be honest, I can't blame him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
I do the same. Yeah.
Right. I do the same deal. So like, we're not hating on Lex Luger.
No, not at all.
But Lex Luger, you know what I was saying? Like, these physiques, like now Lex Luger, he seems in like a way, way better place than he was when he was younger. But I'm pretty sure he's in like a wheelchair full time. And I don't know if that's from the bumps, or I think a big part of it could be just how big he was and lean he was, and then putting that much stress on the body, you know, wrestling, you know, every day for years and years and years. So, but he seems in a really good place mentally now, which, you know, I'm happy about because I was always a big fan of Lex Luger.
Sure.
Coming in at number 1. Now, I'm going to be very specific with this. My number 1 is Triple H. Hear me out. From WrestleMania 18, right? So this was when Triple H returned from injury, came back, wrestles in the main event of WrestleMania 18 against Chris Jericho. Unfortunately for him, having to follow The Rock and Hogan, arguably the greatest match of all time. But the one thing where he did top both Hogan and Rock, who have great physiques, you know, themselves, Triple H, this return, he is so tanned and jacked and lean. And I watched it back the other day, and you forget how big and how tall Triple H actually
Right.
is. And you see him in there with Jericho, and Jericho's, a little shorter, and you're like, wow, Triple H is actually a giant. And people don't really know that or don't really think of him as a giant because he was always wrestling guys like Undertaker and Kane.
Yeah, everyone else is.
Right.
Yeah.
Even The Rock was big, and Austin was big, and all these other guys. And Mick Foley was big. So you just don't even really assume that he was a big guy. That actually makes me, I'm sure I've told this story before, but when I was a kid growing up, like my father wasn't really around, didn't see him too much. And I basically had like no male role models in my life. And I think that's why I turned to pro wrestling. And I started watching wrestling from a very young age, like 5 years old, maybe younger, seeing guys like the Warrior and Hogan, all these big jacked up guys. They remember being young and seeing on a TV show like a normal dude, like take his top off or whatnot, like a topless guy, just had a normal physique. And I was just like, oh, like what the hell happened to him? like what's going on? And I had literally, looking back now, the only men that I've seen topless were pro wrestlers, and I just assumed that's what normal men look like.
Everybody's dads look like.
Right.
Yeah.
I just thought that's what men were. I didn't realize that that most people's physique or normal person's physique is not like that. So I just assumed everyone was that's how they looked. So but going back to Triple H, his physique, he's always been a body guy. It's kind of like fluctuated over the years, and sometimes he's been in crazy shape. Sometimes he's been in still good shape, but not as good as then. But that for me was peak Triple H physique. WrestleMania 18. Go back and watch it, and you'll just be like, wow. Like, and he also has that WrestleMania tan, which just makes it almost so much better. Like he looks like he's ready to compete in a bodybuilding contest, and the person's like painting him on
Spraying
with the roller.
him
You're right. Yeah. So again, I'm not saying these are necessarily the best physiques of all time. I mean, they're definitely up there, but these are my favorites. And there's loads of guys that I really want to mention and give that honorable mention to, but I don't want to say them in case Sam has them. So I'll let you do your thing, Sam.
Okay, you ready for this?
Mm-hmm.
My honorable mention is Kerry Von Erich, actually. And the reason why he's an honorable mention is you actually mentioned this. His physique wasn't necessarily like consistent. Like it was always great, but when I was doing this top 5, I was just Googling. I thought, well, there's one that I have in mind, and it was during that episode, that actual match with Paul Roma. He just looks so insanely cut. But then when I was looking, like his physique actually kind of like changes. Like you said, sometimes he's like heavier, like still looks insane. So, and then sometimes he's not. So that lack of consistency, I just thought I'd put him in as the honorable mention. I also was thinking of Ultimate Warrior, but when he's stacked up against Hulk Hogan, he actually looks kind of small. And that's also excluded him from the list. So it's my real number. I mean,
definitely not
insane.
Small, but yeah.
No, but no, I meant in like stature more so than everything else. But like when you just look at him in isolation, he's a beast. He's insane.
Yes.
My number 5 is, and to be honest, I can't believe he's not in your list. I would have put money that he would have been. My number 5 is Rick Rude.
Dude, so it's funny because everyone always mentions Rick Rude as one of the best physiques in wrestling, but like, I feel like I'm missing something.
I think, you know what you were saying, where you just like, I assumed everybody's dad looks like this, because you had no kind of perspective. I feel like everybody wants their dad to look like Rick Rude.
Yeah, but they definitely do that. Yeah.
So, right. So I think that's what you're missing.
Well, it's insane. Sorry. His physique is insane, but he wasn't like the biggest, and his legs were kind of small. And like not small, but maybe not in proportion. And obviously I can't really comment because I'm not a body guy. But I don't know. He seemed more slender than, the guys on my list, for example. I mean, he still looks amazing. I don't want to take anything away from him, but
sometimes, I mean, the thing about the legs, I guess, is a valid point, but also he's like, it's just aesthetically pleasing. It doesn't matter if it's the biggest or the smallest. It's just very aesthetically pleasing, like his shape and his muscles. And like, he's a bit of a babe, like he's a bit of a man's man kind of. You can see why the ladies like him. So, and you can see why, like I said, I feel like people would think that they wish their dad looked like that. So definitely for me, number 5.
Yeah, I think people mention him a lot in this list because it's kind of part of his gimmick as well, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and that goes. I guess that kind of mythos goes a long way. So I
yes,
that. But no, but like for me, that doesn't detract the fact that he also does have a incredible physique. Number 4. Oh, if you didn't like my number 5 too much, that too much, this is the one that's going to annoy you. Number 4, I've got Vader.
Well, come on, that's ridiculous.
Well, hang on. No, you said top 5 physiques.
Yes,
and listen to this. He has a physique that does what it's supposed to do. However, I remember I said, I've got no ladies on this list, actually, because I did my list as like physiques that I wish that I would have. And I could see my life going one of 2 ways. And if it goes the other way, I would like to be a big monster like Vader. You know, with my diet currently and everything, I'd be absolutely fine with that. I think he's cool. I think that's really cool.
I don't think a doctor would think that's cool.
No, I don't think they're already at their wits' end with me. But this is my list. Number 4, Vader.
Can I just say, like, Vader would always do like the fat man double biceps, which Craig would do as well. And like his arms are obviously really big, but just like not defined at all. So there's no real like bicep popping. It's just kind of
flexing like... doesn't work. Yeah, they look the same whether they're by his arms or up there. Yeah.
he has that physique where you remember like you were younger and you know people's dads or granddads would be like, you know, punch me here, and you'd punch the gut and it'd just be like super hard, super solid, right? He has that solid gut, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. My number 3 is the opposite of this. My number 3 is Bret Hart. Now, he's not the biggest guy in the world, like physically, I mean, not the most, like, he's not giant, he's not stacked. But I think he has, and out of my list, the kind of most attainable physique, and it just looks great on him. Like, he's almost slender in a way, and it's just proportioned perfectly. Like, it's a good-looking physique. I think, like, girls and guys would agree with that.
I definitely wouldn't describe him as slender.
No, I that's not the right word. I would take that back.
But I think in terms of, did you say this? Like, you could argue like Bret Hart had like the perfect wrestling body, you know, like not too big, not too small, not too ripped where it kind of took away from it. Yeah, he looked amazing.
He's not super ripped. So it's kind of like, and some people don't like that. It's also not one where like he could wear normal clothes and it doesn't look odd.
Right.
You know, he could like get away. It was just like almost like a normal physique, but still just like maxed out. And I just think it's a very good look and it suits him really well. So for me, Bret Hart, like it's very athletic. It's a great physique. Number 2, slightly less attainable. Babe and friend of the show, Chris Masters.
Yeah, I thought about having Masters on my list, but then I thought it'd be biased maybe.
Well, this is he's basically famous for it. No, I mean, like Chris Masters, whatever you want to call him. He's an Adonis. He is a masterpiece. On the interview, which is episode 12 of the podcast, by the way, if you haven't listened to it, definitely check it out. It was an absolutely amazing interview. Really good guest. He's saying like he's not as giant as he was in the back in the WWE days, and he actually personally prefers his physique now. And he also said that he feels like the ladies prefer it now. I'm not talking about that, Chris. I'm talking about I'm putting my child wrestling fan brain back in where it belongs. I'm talking about playing Day of Reckoning 2 as a kid, picking Chris Masters, the masterpiece, absolute unit. Like, what a physique that was.
Dude, I'm looking at a picture of him now from back then, and he does look absolutely insane and just like super vascular as well. I think there's 2 points that need to be made about this. One, like, I'm pretty sure when he came onto WWE, he was 21, 22 years old, which just makes it even more insane. And another thing, Chris is like, he's super tall as well. Do you know what I mean? So like to have that physique at that height, like he's just an absolute giant of a man, you know?
Yeah. I mean, like people call, you know, like Brock Lesnar a genetic freak, which he is. Yes. I'd say Chris is as well. Like that's not like, only a fraction of 1% of people can even think to get what he had.
Well, yeah, it's. I mean, that's the thing with bodybuilding and physiques is that stuff. You know, they always say this. They say like, think of your dream physique, and then aim for that. But like reality, you could probably only get like half of that because it all comes down to genetics. And typically, most of us aren't blessed with amazing genetics, and obviously I'm 5'9" at a push, wasn't blessed with amazing genetics. I can still get in great shape, but could I ever look like Chris Masters or Batista or John Cena?
Right.
No. Or The Rock? No. But it all comes down to genetics. Like obviously, of course, your training and your dieting is a massive part of it. But yeah, being blessed with good genetics, that's something that I think about a lot. Like, oh man, that would have been nice.
That think about your dream physique and then like try and aim for that thing that you just mentioned. I feel like back in the day, Chris Masters is like, think of your dream physique and then double it.
Yeah.
That's what he did.
Well, do you think there's like an argument for like two jacks? Is like,
yeah,
I always thought Scott Stein looked amazing, but like I don't think I'd want to look like that,
No, I think there is. I mean, Chris mentioned that basically in the interview. He feels more comfortable and he feels like by every metric, he's better off with the physique he has now, which is still insane.
Yeah. I mean, he said that, like, he said when he was that jacked, he got more attention from dudes than he did girls.
Yeah.
I remember when I was younger, in my like early to mid 20s, I got really, really big because I was like determined to get so big because wrestling still required you to be massive back then. So I was, bulking and doing it, and I was powerlifting. I was lifting really heavy weights, and I got really big. Not that lean though, but really big. And I used to get attention all the time from guys,
fellow guys in the gym. Yeah.
How much do you bench? And just I'd walk down the street. Oh my god, you're massive, or whatever. And yeah, I prefer being slim and like because when you bulk and you do that kind of diet, like your face gets puffier and just it's a lot, So I'd rather have a pair of 6-pack abs. Unfortunately, I can't really get them because I love chocolate hobnobs and bread and cheese too much.
Yeah. My list is basically comprised of what you just said. I'm the guy, down the gym who's giving you attention. This is what I'm doing to these 5 guys. And my number 1, how he's not in your list is a crime.
Oh, I know who it is, but I knew you were going to do him, so I just thought I'd go
fair.
Different.
It's Steve Blackman, isn't it?
Of course.
Can you be too shredded? Yes. Is Steve Blackman too shredded? I'm not going to say he is. I'm going to make an absolute exception for him, and I'm going to be a hypocrite. Yes, you can be too shredded unless you're Steve Blackman.
I don't think he's too shredded, though. I think he's on point.
He is shredded, though.
He's shredded.
Like, how more shredded can you really get?
Oh, you can
before you turn into Bruce Lee, basically.
Yeah, well, if you like Google like 4% body fat, for example.
Yeah, I see. I get where I get where you're going with
that's
that.
Like
yeah. There's a point where it get yeah.
And that's just like, but the thing is, when you see this 4% or 5% body fat, that's like you can't stay at that body fat percentage. Like you literally die. People get like this for competitions to do it for like one day, and then obviously it's not sustainable. But Steve Blackman, he was ripped as hell. And he might have the perfect wrestling physique.
I think so. He is one cut lad, and he's my number 1.
It's funny, I did have an argument with a few of the people on social media where they were saying, oh, he looked better back in the 80s. And I was like, nah, he was bigger in the 80s, but he looks way better cut, I think, personally.
Despite that short or real, like, doing so well, and I've watched it loads of times myself. Right now, I can now, but like off the top of my head, I can't picture him from the 80s, even though he's on the thumbnail. Like it just doesn't stick. He's kind of too generic.
It is.
Steve Blackman, our 90s Steve Blackman, completely different story. You think Steve Blackman, bang, he's right there. You know exactly what he looks like.
No, I'm totally with you. But, Sam, it does lead me to the question, why do you think that all these wrestlers were bigger in the 80s and the 90s? Do you know what? I think I have an answer. It's because men are in decline. Did you know that? It's true. I'm not lying. the average strength in men has decreased. Sperm counts are an all-time low. Yes. And depression, unfortunately, is at an all-time high. And we're not talking about it enough until now. It's time to turn things around. The reason? Testosterone levels are under attack from a host of chemicals that we are exposed to every single day. I'm talking about things like soaps, deodorants, shampoos, shower gels, vaping, seed oils in so many foods that you don't even realize, pesticides, other chemicals, and don't forget, your phones are all disrupting our testosterone production and sperm count. With so many things out there that are causing testosterone decline, it's more important than ever to be proactive and boosting your own testosterone levels with proven ingredients like the ones found in the Legacy Test Stack. Test X9 is Legacy Sports Nutrition's best-selling product, and thousands of customers have already used it and reported phenomenal results in their energy, their strength, their sex drive, and their mood. Compounding it with T-Assist adds even more proven test-boosting ingredients, as well as an estrogen inhibitors to ensure that your masculinity stays exactly where it needs to be. Every ingredient in Test X9 is clinically proven to stimulate natural testosterone production. And for complete transparency, there are links posted on the site to external studies for each ingredient so you can make an informed decision yourself. You want to talk about toxic masculinity? Well, I've got news for you. Toxins are killing your masculinity. Protect yourself and stay healthy. Stop waiting. Level up today now at legacysups.com and use the code VILLAIN, that's VILLAIN, for a 10% discount and support this show at the very same time. That's legacysups.com, LGACYSUPPS.com. Level up with legacy. And let's all look like the wrestlers from the 80s, shall we now? With Legacy Sups, I think that's a great idea. Honestly, I've noticed a big improvement in my physique in the last year or so. And a lot of people have made that comment to me saying, oh, you look leaner and your muscles are coming out and everything else. And a big part of it has just been having the right supplements, like people always ask, like, do these supplements work and everything else? It's like, well, listen, with getting leaner, building muscles, big part of it is all about your recovery and your rest, So like these Legacy Sups, they help me sleep. The Test X9, it helps me give me that boost in the gym to get that extra rep in, to put that extra plate on the bar. And that's the stuff that's going to help you grow, improve your physique and your overall health. So, if you're working hard already and if you're trying to diet or whatever else, like, why not supplement it with supplements? That's what they're there for. Do you know what I mean? Like, they give you the extra hand. You're doing all the hard work already. Like, I know how difficult going to the gym is. I know how difficult it is to not eat bread and cheese every day. But if you're already doing that, you're doing the hard part. Like, this is the easy part. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can just take these supplements and it's going to give you that extra boost, that help to get to where you want to be. So, and it's a real thing, man. Like it's crazy that testosterone levels all around the world, they've been dropping over the years. You know what I mean? So it's so important for us to look after this sort of thing. So yeah, guys, like, honestly, check out legacysups.com. And like I said, we're hooking you up with our promo code VILLAIN. So you've got no excuse whatsoever. 10% off. You can't beat that, can you?
You can't beat that. You can't beat that.
Well, Sam, tell you something else you can't beat is the guests that we have on Chilling with the Villain. Not only do we have the best social media pages in all of wrestling, I'm saying it now. I've seen all these other guys with their social media posts and just lazy and just no effort put in, or all they'll do is just clip a part of their podcast, or
where they laugh at their own joke.
Or they laugh at their own jokes, or they'll clip a part of their live reactions and they're, pretending that they're so shocked when they've seen something happen, like, oh, and just try to be over animated and everything else. We don't do that on Chilling with the Villain. We cut the BS on Chilling with the Villain. You've got me, a professional wrestling expert. You've got Sam, who is he doesn't think that he's, that he knows it all, and which is so refreshing for a podcast. You know what I mean?
Right.
We've got the perfect combination here, right? We have the best social media pages, the best content, and we also bring you the best guests. And that brings me to our next segment of the show. I'm very excited because today we are joined by none other than Downtown Bruno, also known as Harvey Wippleman. Let's get to it. So here we are today on Chilling with the Villain. I'm very excited to be joined by one of the most iconic wrestling managers of all time, one of the most iconic WWE, WWF managers of all time. Of course, I'm talking about Harvey Wippleman, aka Downtown Bruno. Bruno, thank you so much for joining us today on Chilling with the Villain.
Well, hey, thank y'all so much for having me. Good to see you again, Marty. Sam, it's nice to meet you. And
lovely to meet you too.
And I'll tell you what, just for full disclosure, let's tell all the viewers and listeners that we had a few technical issues before we were able to start the podcast. I had to move closer to my router, which is in my bathroom. So that's why the lighting isn't that good and the acoustics might not be the best. But you're actually getting this from Downtown Bruno's bathroom in Walls, Mississippi, in the shadow of Memphis, Tennessee.
Oh, yeah.
Listeners. He's not on the toilet, by the way, listeners. He's on a chair.
I'm not
Bruno, you just said like, oh, I'm really DIYing it. And that's kind of the spirit of this podcast. Like myself and Sam basically taught ourselves how to do everything else. So this just
from scratch,
right in line with our theme here on the podcast. But yeah, once again, thank you so much for joining us. Like, I don't know if you've ever had a chance to listen to the podcast before, but we really celebrate wrestling from the 80s, wrestling from the 90s and early 2000s, which obviously you're a big part of and everything else. So it's really exciting for us. I guess my first question to you is, I was thinking about this the other day. So people kind of know how to become a wrestler now. Like, okay, you joined a wrestling school or whatever it might be, but it feels like there's not really a clear path for a manager. Like, how does someone become a manager in pro wrestling? Or more specifically, like, what was your in? Obviously, I know you're there in Memphis, but I'm just so interested how you even get into something like wrestling, like back in the 80s, right?
Yeah, I started off in 1979, which is 44 years ago. I started off putting up the ring. Okay. And I'd put the ring up, take it down, put the chairs up, take them down afterwards, whatever, put out what we call window cards, which is posters. Because obviously back in the 70s and 80s, there was no internet or nothing to advertise. So I did stuff like that. And I was always a running mouth little guy, my whole life, just having fun and teasing people in the dressing room or whatever. So I spent the first couple of years in the business, just like I said, putting up the ring and chairs. And then they little by little taught me how to referee, because they figured they could save money by having me also be a ring crew and a referee instead of having a separate guy. Well, a dear, dear friend of mine, God rest his soul, is not with us anymore, Rocky Johnson. We were in Kansas City together, and I think it was 1983, and I really wanted to be a manager. So Bob Geigel was going to allow me to be a manager, but just put on a suit and a tie and stand in the corner and or sit in a chair and don't do anything. And if I was going to be involved in the outcome of a match or something or distraction, get up, do it, sit back down. Well, that wasn't any good. Anybody could do that. Rocky Johnson said, man, the way you run your mouth, the way you act, he goes, let me bring you to Hawaii to work with the Mavias. He goes, we'll let you run wild and you can become a manager, what you really want to be. And I went to Hawaii in 83, and that's how I became a manager. So I got there, and Leah Mavia wanted me to work on the ring crew over there. And I said, Rocky, I didn't come all the way from Kansas City to Hawaii where I could put up the ring again. So he got me out of that, and I was just managing. And that's when I started learning how to be a manager. I had managed a couple times for Dale Mann in Mid-Continental Wrestling when I first started out, who I was putting up the ring for. And I didn't have a clue what I was doing. Zero clue. But when I finally got to Hawaii, I started learning.
Yeah.
And, because I'm going to tell you something. Back, I was managing for Dale Mann a time or two back in the early 80s. I didn't know anything. So the referee, as y'all know, sometimes will call the spot, pass the word along. So the referee leaned over to me and said, when so-and-so hits the ropes on your side, I want you to trip him. I said to myself, hell no, I ain't going to do that. The guy will kick the hell out of me. I'm not going to get that guy to beat my butt. This referee must not like the guy, or he must have a bet on the match or something. So the guy hit the ropes on my side. I stepped way back. I didn't trip him. Well, the guy was expecting to be tripped, and I guess he was green too. So he took the bump anyway without me tripping him. Then I got back in the dressing room, and Dale Mann says, what the hell happened there? And he was more mad at the guy than me because the guy took the bump without me tripping him. But that's when I said, well, the referee wanted me to trip, but I didn't want to get in trouble. And that's when I got smart enough to the business that day right there. It took a minute to learn, but a lifetime to master it. I still ain't mastered it.
Well, I was going to ask that. I guess back then in 1979, obviously the business was a lot more protected.
Absolutely.
Back then. Like, I assume they didn't smarten you up at all. Like, you just kind of start and you just kind of have to figure it out yourself in terms of how much they let you in, right?
Right. That's exactly right. So I learned, but then I went to Hawaii. And I owe several people in my life for giving me the life I got. Rocky Johnson for bringing me there. And then my mentor, Jerry King Lawler, came to Hawaii. I had been trying to get into Memphis so bad because that's home,
Yeah.
But Jimmy Hart, was the main guy in Memphis. So there wasn't no spot for me. And I understand that. He was really over and he was, a great guy, still is a great guy. Well, anyway, Lawler came to Hawaii and he watched me manage some other guy. And he went to Rocky. He goes, man, let that little guy manage me. He's doing a good job. I managed Lawler in Hawaii and Lawler loved my work. And he said, man, if we had a spot open in Memphis, I'd bring you there right now. But Hart's there. He goes, we ever get an opening, you call me and you got a spot. I said, oh my God. Well, when I seen Jimmy Hart walk out on that WWF TV with Greg Valentine, year that was, I must have called Lawler 50 times a day. And he finally said, Jesus Christ, okay, we're going to bring you in, but if you don't do good, you ain't going to make it. I said, man, you love my work. He goes, yeah, once or twice. He goes, let's see how you do it on a regular basis. Well, he did, because this is 44 years from then, 40 years later. So,
Right, yeah.
So Lawler gave me my big break in Memphis.
That's a great story. You know what? You talked about the Hawaii territory, and
right.
I consider myself a bit of like a wrestling historian, and there's loads of stuff about the Memphis territory out there, loads of stuff about Texas and Florida. Yeah. You never really hear anything about the Hawaii territory. Like, how was the territory over there? How was the business over there? Like, I assume that if you're a wrestler or a manager or referee, like, to me, at least, that'd be the dream place to go work in Hawaii and do wrestling for a full-time living. Like, how was the territory over there in Hawaii?
Well, yeah, the weather was awesome, of course. And a lot of great talent over there. I learned a lot over there. And I can plug this, even though it's after the fact. We'll talk about it, of course, but I'm saying if anybody wants to really learn a lot about the Hawaii territory, I think it's still available on it's a streaming service somewhere. On Vice TV, we did a whole hour-long show. It might have been 2 hours. I can't remember, but called Tales from the Territories.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Me, Lars Anderson, Rocky Iakea, and Kevin Sullivan did like I said, well, we did probably 5 hours of conversation. I think edited it down to whatever. But, you can learn a lot about the Hawaii territory. I'm sure you can find it, on a streaming service somewhere.
Yeah.
But that's beside the point, because you can hear about all kind of different things. My end of it, yeah, it was a great place to learn. There was a lot of great guys there. The weather was great. But the downside is you don't work every night because, it's a small island, Oahu. I mean, sometimes you take a puddle jumper to the next island, and sometimes they made tours over to Western Samoa. But in general, you weren't working every night. So you didn't make a whole lot of money. I mean, when you did work, you got paid decent.
Mm-hmm.
I was living with Lars Anderson at his place in Hawaii Kai. But, you were working just to pay your bills, you know,
Right.
especially
Yeah.
guys just starting out. So there was ups and downs to it. And then they put me to work in the office. So I would answer the phone and do stuff in the office. So I get extra money for that. That helped quite a bit. And there was a restaurant on the bottom floor of the office called Victoria Station. So I'd go down there every day, and they knew I was working in the office. And they gave me a discount on my food and everything. And then at night I'd sit there and drink beer and whatever until it was time to go back with Lars back to Hawaii Kai, which is like 45 minutes from, downtown Honolulu. So, it was a good place. But like I said, for a regular or a local, I mean, I wasn't a local Hawaiian, but, a local guy at the time, it wasn't a whole lot of money. Now, the guys that would fly in or whatever, yeah, they probably got a hell of a payday and went back to their territory, but that was my territory. So, what I mean? It was a great place, and I got to meet a lot of great people, spend time with Atta Johnson, who was Dwayne's mother, who's like a mother to me. We're extremely close. Me and Rocky, extremely close. God rest his soul. So a lot of good came out of it. So I'm not complaining. For a guy that was only in the business 3-4 years, Hawaii, I mean, how can you complain? I learned a lot. I made enough money to make a living, and I made some lifelong friends.
Yeah, dude. Well, that sounds like a dream come true to me. Just
perfect.
Getting discounted food in Hawaii and wrestling and drinking beer sounds great.
Right.
I'd say so would you say that you got your real break in wrestling, or you made your name for yourself in the Memphis territory? Would you say that was accurate?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I owe everything to Memphis territory, to Jerry the King Lawler, and also to Jerry Jarrett, Eddie Marlin, Christine Jarrett. It's just Memphis, but Lawler above and beyond.
You hear that a lot about Lawler, that he gave so many guys their breaks, and normally through the Memphis territory. Like, we've heard so much about the Memphis territory. Like, how was that like a super exciting time for you to be a part of Memphis? I know apparently the paydays weren't amazing, but just to be a part of it, and it was regular as well, right? It was pretty much shows every day, I take it.
Oh my God. I'm going to tell you, Memphis TV every Saturday morning, live for an hour and a half. Saturday night, 3 Saturdays out of the month, we was in Nashville. The 4th Saturday, we were either in Jonesboro, Arkansas, or Blytheville, Arkansas. Sundays was either Rupp Arena in Lexington, Kentucky, Jackson, Tennessee, possibly a spot show, or sometimes an off day. Monday was always the Mid-South Coliseum in Memphis. Tuesday was 400 miles north, Louisville Gardens, Louisville, Kentucky. Wednesday was Evansville, Indiana. Thursday was either a spot show or an off day. And Friday was usually either a spot show or an off day. So we were working constantly. And I'm going to tell you something. I've said this to every interview I've ever done, every podcast I've ever done. And I always make sure people understand, I'm not bragging about myself. I'm bragging about the Memphis TV, the Memphis territory, how strong that TV was. Okay. And people think I'm lying or blowing smoke up my own butt. I'm not. I know on a local level around Memphis what Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt and whoever you want to name go through on a worldwide basis with the paparazzi and the fans and the people. Okay. Back in the mid 80s, I swear before God, and I'm a Christian man, so I don't take that lightly. I swear before God, I could not go out and eat. I couldn't go to a restaurant. I couldn't go to the Mall of Memphis and walk around. I would be swarmed, surrounded by people. And like I said, again, it's not because I am so great. The TV was so strong. I mean, literally back in the early to mid 80s, late 80s, the TV ratings for CWA, the Memphis Wrestling, was higher in the Memphis metro area than all the top shows of the time. Higher than the Cosby Show, higher than Cheers, higher than Roseanne, higher than 60 Minutes, whatever the shows were that were, big back then. Memphis Wrestling in Memphis had higher ratings. I think at one point we had like 70% of the TVs that were on in Memphis at Saturday morning were watching Memphis Wrestling. I mean, I couldn't go anywhere. There was a time, I'll never forget this. I was over on Cleveland Street in Memphis, A guy named Ricky Winters had a tire store over there, and I was getting some tires on my vehicle. And he said, well, Bruno, it's going to take about an hour or so. I've got 2 people ahead of you and blah, blah, blah. He goes, there's a Burger King right down there. Why don't you walk down there and get something to eat? Okay. I walked down there. It was the middle of the day on a Monday afternoon. Not too much going on. A school bus of young inner city kids was on a field trip, pulled into that Burger King to have their food. When they realized who I was, they were like 14-year-old kids, 13, whatever. They weren't violent or mean or nothing. It just made such a scene. They literally had to call the Memphis Police Department in there, get me out through the back door, get me back up to the tire store. And they said, just stay here. And they went, I'll never forget that. That was damn near 40 years ago. And I'll never forget it. No. Remember another thing, too, about back then. Yeah, you protect your gimmick, you're a heel, but you're not mean to the people.
Okay?
Right. Yeah.
You can just be cocky. You know, can we have your autograph, Downtown Bruno? Some of the heels I called marks for themselves would do. Get away from me. I hate you. No, you don't do that. That's called disgusting heat. That doesn't get you over. And that makes people not want to watch the show. I would always be, sure, you can have my autograph. It'll be the best one you ever had. Blah, blah, blah. You should frame it. You know, be friendly but cocky at the same time.
Well, I agree.
That's how I always was. But I was out in Bartlett, Tennessee, which is just east of Memphis, like a suburb of Memphis. I was eating at a steakhouse there one night, and this man walked over to me, and he says, my daughter really wants to meet you. She was like 12 or something. I'm not saying, a grown-up, just like a young girl. He said, she really wants to meet you. She's scared you'll be mean to her like you are on TV. I said, absolutely not. Bring her over. And I said, hello, what's your name? Blah, blah, blah. I signed her thing. And she literally started crying. I said, oh, no, why are you crying? Because I was so scared and you're so nice. And it made me feel like you got a certain responsibility,
yes,
when you're in the public eye like that, and if people come up to you, they're a jerk. Hey, that's all fake or whatever. Okay, then you change your attitude. But when people are respectful, you got to give respect to get respect. And I've always just been very grateful I had that opportunity here in Memphis.
No, absolutely. It's crazy. Like, people look back at the Memphis territory, so fondly. And you mentioned about how amazing it did on, TV and everything else and the houses. What do you think made Memphis, the TV show specifically, like, so special? Why was it so hot? Like, what were they doing right, which made everyone want to watch the show?
Okay. Well, the first thing, which is the honest to God truth, we worked ourselves into a shoot. Bruno Lauer is the nicest guy in the world, and I'm friends with everyone. Downtown Bruno, when that red light came on that camera or that bell hit at the Coliseum or whatever, Downtown Bruno hated Jerry the King Lawler. Bruno Lauer loved him as the best friend. But when that red light came on or that bell rang, I hated it. We worked ourselves into a shoot. The people believed it because we believed it. We believed in ourselves and what we were doing. And the people could tell that. We weren't going through the motions. We weren't doing a bunch of obviously choreographed high spots or whatever. We weren't doing obviously memorized interviews or whatever. But I'm not criticizing anybody that has to memorize things now, because these guys now that are starting out didn't have a territory to get started out in and go to all these territories. By the time they get ready to go on a national and worldwide level, they were ready for it. You're just jump right out of the frying pan into the fire at this stage. But in our day, we believed in it. And our thing too was, if you couldn't talk, if you couldn't work, you just weren't going to make it. So we had to make sure that we believed in ourselves and what we were doing, and we did. And the people did. And another thing about our territory was people got invested in the people, because it was like a family deal. The Gilberts, the Jarretts, the Welches, or the Fullers, whose real name was the Welches, but the Fullers, and people believed, if I attacked Doug Gilbert, and Eddie Gilbert would come running out from the back, like with a towel around him or whatever, because he was ready to kill me because I attacked his brother. And the people can relate to that. You know what I mean? If I talk bad about a guy's mother, the guy come out like he wants to kill me, and I'd run away and get behind my big guy or run away. And people say, oh my, and people can relate to that. If I talk bad about your mother, you're not going to like me, So the people were like, oh my, how that little son of a bitch get away with talking about, Jeff Jarrett's grandmother. Well, Jeff gets a hold of him, he's going to kill him. People can relate to it. And that's we made it relatable. It wasn't some far-fetched stuff. I mean, I'm not going to say we didn't do goofy things too, but I mean, every wrestling organization does. But for the most part, people believed in what we were doing because we believed in it ourselves.
Do you think that sort of believability in wrestling has kind of been lost over the years, do you think, compared to back then? Or
well, yeah, but there's several reasons for it. One is because now it's openly, entertainment, and we understand that it's very athletic entertainment. It's very dangerous entertainment. Don't try this at home, and it's hard. We get hurt, all of us. Even me as a manager, I've got hurt a lot. So it's not the F word. I don't like that word. It's predetermined. It's sports entertainment, absolutely. And we open, it's called World Wrestling Entertainment now, for Christ's sake. That's fine. It's I wouldn't say so much as lost. It's just with this day and age, it had to come out with the social media and cable TV and the internet and whatever. I mean, back in our day, we did the same finish every town in Memphis. I mean, the territory: Memphis, Louisville, Evansville, Nashville, Jackson, Lexington. We did the same match, the same finish. Well, you couldn't do that now because people would, Downtown Bruno beat Marty the Villain tonight with the Boston Crab. The next night, we do the same thing. The next night, the same thing. You can't. I don't know how in the world we run a territory now.
Right.
With the social media. So,
right.
Yeah. But yeah, it's what it was. And I've made this statement many times. There's people who have wrestling shows in Memphis now and a TV show, and they're doing the best they can. And I'm not putting them down by any means. But the fact is, there'll always be wrestling in Memphis, but there'll never again be Memphis wrestling.
Right. Yeah, that's a great quote. I love that.
Thank you.
I love that. Bruno, was it I assume it was in Memphis where you first met one of my favorite wrestlers of all time, Sid or Psycho Sid.
Yeah.
Sid Vicious.
Yeah, what happened was he had just broke in, wasn't even working full time in Memphis. They would just use him on occasion. And I went to back in the territory days, sometimes you get burnt for a while and you have to go somewhere else, So I went to Kansas City again, managing. I was managing the Baton Twins. This is in 86. Managing the Baton Twins and Earthquake Ferris in Kansas City. Loved those guys, all three of them. God bless Bradley Batten. He left us, but God bless him. But we weren't making a whole lot of money and things were getting kind of worse. So I said, well, I might get ready to go back to Memphis. About that time, Robert Fuller called me. He was doing the booking in Continental, Alabama. Wanted to know if I knew a guy that would fit the bill to do the Humongous that Jeff Van Canton used to do with the hockey mask and the leather outfit and the muscles, the whole bit. I said, yeah, I know a guy in West Memphis. I think would be perfect for it. Well, Bruno, get a hold of him. See if he wants to come. Send me his picture. Back then, we'd have to send pictures if the people didn't know you. Well,
right.
There wasn't no cell phones back then or nothing. So I had to do detective work to try to locate Sid. But I found out he was working construction for a guy named Bobby Jones. And I knew Bobby Jones. So I got a hold of Bobby Jones and I gave Sid the number of a little rent by the week hotel I was staying at in Kansas City. And Sid called me. I said, hey, man, you remember me from Memphis? Yeah. Long story short, he said he was interested. I sent his picture to Robert. Robert said, oh, my God, can he work? I said, well, he's real green, but I said, he's athletic and, he's worked before. So they brought him down there and got over like $1 million as he worked with guys that were good workers like Nightmare Danny Davis and Wendell Cooley and different Armstrong brothers and dad. He learned how to work and came along. So that was his first full-time job in our profession in Continental, Alabama. And he went when Eddie Gilbert came in for a while. Then Eddie Gilbert left and went to help do the booking. And I think it was called NWA back then. I don't think it was WCW yet. I could be wrong. But he brought Sid in there and gave him his first break as, Sid, not the mask and all that.
Yeah.
So that it all, everything, progressed from there for him.
With Sid, like I just said about Sid being one of my favorite wrestlers, Sid, he main evented a couple of WrestleManias, I think, and obviously you were involved in one of them. He
Right.
was a former WWF champion, former WCW world champion.
Right.
Do you ever feel like Sid doesn't really get his flowers in wrestling? And if so, why do you think that is?
Yeah, it's funny. I wondered that a lot of times. I'm surprised he's not in the Hall of Fame. I imagine he will be one day. I don't know what the only reason I can think that is he's always worked for a while and he made good money, I'm sure. And like I told you earlier on the phone, we were talking privately. I said, I don't know how much he made because he don't owe me no money. So I don't know, but I know I'm sure he made good money.
Oh yeah.
So I guess at some point he just didn't work all the time. He'd work for a while, then he'd disappear for a while. Work for a while and disappear for a while. And maybe that might be part of it. And the fact that maybe he didn't so much as have a gimmick, and the wrestling got to where everybody had a gimmick at one point. And he was just the big tough guy, with the black tights or blue tie, whatever tights he wore, and just went out there and looked like $1 million. And the thing is very believable. I mean, when Sid's like Brock Lesnar, if he says he's going to kick your ass, well, it's obvious that he's capable of it.
Yeah, dude, one of the things I stole from Sid, obviously I take different inspirations from different wrestlers, and I stole the fist pump from Sid, on his entrance when he would just come out and just fist pump the fans. I just thought that was so cool. So I do that sometimes on my entrance. And
that's cool.
The only one time I met Sid, I was doing a wrestling convention and I went to the restroom and I was stood at the cubicle. The next thing I know, I just feel this large presence next to me and I just look and it's Psycho Sid. And obviously I'd watched him for years on TV, but dude, he's so much bigger even in real life. You see him he's a ginormous, right?
He really is. Yeah. I mean, that's one thing. I've been around a lot of giants. And that's what helped me too, because me being a small stature made them look even bigger.
Yeah.
So,
right.
But yeah, I mean, oh my God. Back when we were in Continental together, we couldn't even, this is how much we protected the business back then. When we were in Continental together, that TV was strong too. Don't get me wrong. Not like Memphis TV. I've never experienced nothing like that. Right. But in Continental, the TV was strong enough. Everybody knew who I was. So me and Sid couldn't even go out and eat together because everybody would realize that he was humongous.
Of course. Yeah. Can't miss him, can you?
Yeah. So he'd go eat by himself and I'd go eat by myself. Gotcha. When we'd travel somewhere, I'd drop him at one restaurant. And I'd go down the street or whatever because we just couldn't be seen together because everybody would know that he wasn't a deformed monster. He was, a good looking, rugged looking guy. So
right, for sure. Yeah. So am I right in thinking that did Sid help you get your start in the WWF? Or
absolutely. Like I was saying earlier, there's 4 people I give credit to my life. Rocky Johnson, Jerry King Lawler, and absolutely Sid. When an opening came for a manager up there, because at that time they were trying to get all the top people from every territory to come up there. And not to pat myself on the back like I'm this big, huge star, but, I was arguably the top manager in Memphis at that point. And Sid mentioned me to the company. And then a lot of people say, oh, yeah, we know Bruno. He was in Memphis with us. He was in Kansas City with us. He was wherever, Louisiana, whatever. So, and I am going to brag on myself on this. I never made any enemies. Everybody always liked me because I never caused a problem or give anybody a hard time. So, it was all good things about me when Sid brought my name up. So they brought me up for a tryout. I think it was 89. I'm the world's worst with years. But in Worcester, Massachusetts, which is the furthest north I'd ever been in my entire life. So I went up there and had my tryout, and evidently it worked well because I got the contract out of it. So, but yeah, Sid is the one that threw my name in the hat, and I really appreciate that very much, very much. And yeah, he gets the credit.
Absolutely. Who gets the credit for coming up with the name Harvey Wippleman?
Yeah.
Gene Okerlund and Gorilla Monsoon.
Okay, so they obviously wanted to change you from Downtown because you've been working as Downtown Bruno, obviously, for
right.
Years.
Well, the deal is 2 things on that. Now, Bruno's my real name; it's on my birth certificate, but they couldn't copyright that because it's my real name.
Right.
And the other thing is, I guess, especially at that time, it wasn't too far removed from that fellow Bruno Sammartino.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So, you know, and he was a legend up there. And I only met him once or twice. Seemed like a really nice guy. So that was fine. I didn't care. Hey, as long as it said Bruno Lauer on the pay stub, I don't care what they call it.
Right. I was going to say, if you're making that WWF money, I'm sure they can call you whatever they want, I guess.
Oh, yeah. Hey, I always say, call me whatever you want. Just don't call me too late to get paid.
For sure. Well, you know, speaking of getting paid, like, I think one of the things that really sticks out with your career, or I'm sure one of your career highlights, main event in WrestleMania 8 with Sid and Hogan. It seemed like you had a program with Hogan yourself almost. How was that experience? Like, I mean, doing WrestleMania full stop is going to be, so it's like during WrestleMania, that's going to be awesome. Doing the main event, that's going to be awesome. Working with Hogan, arguably the biggest star of all time, that's going to be awesome. Like, that must, like, how was that for you?
It was, let me tell you, I've told this to everybody too. And you can go back to any podcast I've ever done, so you can see I always tell the truth. You know, there's only one version of the truth.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. Hulk Hogan, to me, is like Elvis Presley and the Beatles put together. There's never the feeling. I've never done drugs or narcotics in my life. I drink a lot of beer, but I've never been a drug user. The high that I get or got in the ring when Hulk Hogan's music hit, it's got to be better than any drug. You know what I'm saying? And you know, I hope people don't mistake that for me condoning drugs. I'm just saying it was when that music hit, the electricity, the feeling. I mean, the hair on my body stood up, and the hair on my head, I used to have hair. You know, I never experienced anything like when Hulk Hogan came to the ring.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never been in the ring in my life with anybody that just turned that place into electricity. Now, I have to say this in full disclosure. By the time Stone Cold and The Rock and Brock Lesnar and these other guys came into the ring, you know, into their prime, I was already out of the ring by then. I was working behind the scenes or whatever. So I can't say that the same electricity wouldn't happen when the glass breaks for Stone Cold, or when The Rock, can you smell what The Rock's or whatever, or John Cena, when I can't, because I hadn't been in the ring for that. But in my time in the ring, nobody, the only one that even came close to Hogan in that respect as a good guy, as a fan favorite, was Undertaker. Okay. Mm-hmm. But Hogan is just, I mean, I can't explain the electricity. It was unreal. I mean, to me, he is the best there is. He drew more money for a longer period of time and stayed on top for a longer period of time than anybody in the history of our profession. Nobody was in second place.
I mean, I have this debate sometimes. I always kind of argue in favor of Hogan being like the biggest wrestler of all time. Some people argue like Stone Cold Steve Austin, but it's like Austin was on top for maybe 4 years, whereas Hogan was on top for like 20, 25 or something ridiculous.
Right.
And he did the NWO and all that. Then he came back later on and still drew loads of money. And and obviously you lived it as well. So would you tend to agree with that? You think Hogan is of all time number one?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, in my opinion. And that's not a disparaging remark or insult to anybody else we can name. I mean, look at the books. It's a fact. Count the years and the years. Hogan broke in, I think, in 77.
Yeah.
And he kept going. I mean, I broke in 79, but he broke in Tampa in 77. By the time he came to Memphis in, I think, 78 or 79, he was on his way to the top. And he credits Lawler for giving him his first break, too. Him and Lawler very close to this day.
Did you get on well with Hogan? Were you friends with him?
Oh, fantastic. I love Hogan. Let me tell you something. For those that don't know, or if y'all don't know, I live in Walls, Mississippi. I'm actually an elected official here. I'm an alderman here in the town of Walls. But Walls is basically a suburb of Memphis, Tennessee. I'm literally 10, maybe 15 minutes to downtown Memphis. I'm literally 3 minutes to the Memphis borderline. So I'm a Memphis guy, in the metro area. The reason I say that is we were at the Pyramid Arena, which it's a Bass Pro Shop now, but at one time it's where Memphis State played basketball. It's where WWE wrestled in Memphis, the Pyramid Arena. So we were there one night, and Hogan was working with somebody. I don't even remember who he was working with that I was managing. And he rolled out of the ring while the guy was getting the heat. And Hogan goes, blast me, brother. And I hit him. He took a bump like Mike Tyson hit him. He goes, come back and get me again. I went and grabbed him and started giving him the pepper punches, the boom, 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 boom. He goes, it's your hometown, brother. He didn't have to do that. That was just like wonderful. So I'll never forget this. This is funny. Great guy. I love Hogan. The next night, I don't know if it's the next night. The next night we worked together. We were in Oakland, California. Did the same spot. He rolled out of the ring, but he slugged me. He goes, this ain't Memphis, brother.
Yeah, it's funny because people give, I feel like some people give Hogan a hard time. And every time I've met him or dealt with him, he's always been super, super nice and kind. So.
Oh, absolutely. If anybody says anything bad about Hogan around me, I'll be the first one to stand up for him because he's a wonderful guy. They said he always looked out for himself. Well, you have to. Are we not going to look out for ourselves in the business? I've had, and it's funny. I'll tell you this. And like I told you earlier when we talked before the broadcast, when I do these podcasts, I don't like to talk bad about anybody, put anybody down or get into anything negative. And I don't. I'm not going to start doing that. But I will just say this. One guy that nobody probably ever even hardly heard of, unless they're historians such as yourself, that did more to try to damage me and the business. I'll never get over it. A guy named Eric Embry. He came to Memphis. Evidently, he did a good job booking in Dallas. So they thought they'd give him a shot booking in Memphis. He did everything he could to hurt the territory, whether he was doing it on purpose or out of ignorance, I don't know. But here's a guy that he brought in, a dear friend of mine to this day, Jacqueline Moore as Miss Texas. And I was babyface manager at the time. So he was bringing her in as a heel. He says, I want her to beat you up and leave you laying. I want to get her strong, get color and everything. I wasn't crazy about it, but I said, okay, I'll do what I'm told. The next week, and there's another good friend of mine, but Dirty White Boy had his wife at the time, Kimberly, the Dirty White girl, little bitty girl, beautiful girl, but small, tiny. He had her slinging Jackie around the ring like she was a rag doll. And I couldn't believe it. He had Jackie beat the crap out of me. And what it was, he goes, well, all I'm trying to do is just weed out all these Lawler guys. I don't want all these. I've never forgave him for that.
No.
So that's the thing. So I learned that you got to look out for yourself. I never went for it. But that's another long story, but I fixed that situation. I'll just say that,
Right.
And if I ever ran into Eric Embry at a convention or something, I would love to have a conversation with him. I'm a Christian man. I don't want to hold grudges. I want to tell him how I feel about what he did. And I want to, why did you do that? There was ways around that. Mm-hmm. So you got a guy like Hogan did not do nothing to hurt nobody. He just looked out for himself. Here's a guy that came in and did everything. He couldn't hurt me, hurt Eddie Gilbert, hurt Doug Gilbert, hurt Steve Kern. Anybody he thought he could hurt. Not physically, but you know what I mean?
Right, for sure. Yeah.
And Hogan didn't do that.
Right. And I just think if you've got a top spot and you're making millions of dollars, why would you want to give that up to somebody else? Like, that doesn't make any sense, right? If you're a top actor in Hollywood, like, do you have to give that up after a certain amount of time? Like, it doesn't really make sense, does it?
Right. Yeah, right. Exactly.
Right. You mentioned previously just now about working with The Undertaker. Obviously, I think that's after you were managing Sid, you started managing Kamala. So I guess there's two questions. How was it working with Kamala? And of course, how was it working with The Undertaker?
Well, I'll tell you, Kamala, another one, God bless his soul, he's gone. He was from Tate County, Mississippi, which is one county's south east of DeSoto County, where I'm from, where I live. So we had a connection right there, and it was great. And he was a good worker. And I knew him from Memphis territory. I knew him from Louisiana. So it ain't like he was just a guy I just met. So, that was good. And Undertaker, let me tell you, the most professional guy you could ever meet. I mean, every accolade he gets, every compliment he gets or whatever is deserved. 100% deserved. Okay. And when he would choke slam me, it was like somebody put me on a bed of feathers. He protected me. He was smooth as silk. I loved him. And I still love him. But I mean, I loved working with him. Great guy. Here's a little trivia for everybody. Undertaker's last match as Mean Mark Callis ever before he became The Undertaker was in Memphis, Tennessee. It was a one-night tournament for the USWA Championship. And he wrestled Bill Superstar Dundee in the first round of the tournament. And he lost by disqualification. I mean, he won by disqualification. In the second match, he wrestled Jerry King Lawler, and Lawler ended up beating him. Somehow, I don't remember how. But the deal is, the trivia thing is, I was the manager of him that night. So I was his final manager ever as Mean Mark before he went up with Percy, Bill Moody, Paul Bearer.
Of course,
and,
yeah.
WWE, WWF at the time. So it's on YouTube. You can watch Mean Mark Callis with Downtown Bruno against Superstar Bill Dundee, and again that night against Jerry the King Lawler. So I'm very proud of that.
Yeah, it was like he turned into Undertaker, never looked back, just always forever the Undertaker after that.
Right.
So it's funny how it seemed like your whole entire career, you managed so many giants, and like the one that I'm most intrigued about. And again, another guy we don't really ever hear too much about, but you did manage Giant Gonzalez. I think it was El Gigante in WCW. I'm always intrigued by Giant Gonzalez, because I remember seeing him when I was a little kid and just being like mesmerized, like, what is that? And like kind of scared, and just like my mind was blown with Giant Gonzalez. But I'm always so intrigued because I think he came from, was it basketball, and he was from Argentina, right?
From Argentina. And apparently they were going to bring him in to play for the Atlanta Hawks basketball team. NBA
That's
team.
right.
But his knees were too bad he couldn't get up and down the court or whatever. But now I don't know this for sure. So if anybody hears me say this, you don't have to type in all these corrections because I could be wrong. But from my understanding was Ted Turner owned the Atlanta Hawks basketball team. And if I'm wrong again, I'm sorry. But my understanding was he was under contract, not with the Hawks per se, but with Ted Turner Productions Incorporated, whatever his thing was. So they were paying him all his money. So that's when they sent him to Turner. Obviously, I do know this, owned WCW.
Right.
So they sent him to be trained to be a wrestler. And that's how that came. And then after that panned out or petered out or whatever there, he ended up coming to work for us. So they put me with him, not only as his manager, as his TV spokesman, but I was his driver and his babysitter, which I didn't mind. He was a tremendous guy, but just very needy. I always had to get him food. He wanted food, and he wanted a watch band, but his wrist was like 4 times the size of mine, So I'd have to get like 3 watch bands and find a jeweler and explain to them that I'm not on drugs and I'm not crazy. I need to put these together for a giant. There was no phones back then, so I couldn't show a picture. I finally got where I carried a cutout from WWF magazine of me and Gonzalez. So I did this pair of size 5X underwear. What are you, crazy? No, for this guy. Oh, okay. Because people thought I was just delusional.
Right.
So, like, great guy. But that night we were in Pontiac Silverdome. Not Pontiac Silverdome, I'm sorry. Palace of Auburn Hills, when they had him turn against me and choke slam me. At that time, it was 94. I broke it in 79. So I've been in the business since. 24, 25 years at the time. First time I'd ever been knocked out. For real. Picked me up like I was saying Undertaker. Oh my God, I would trust him on my life. Gonzalez chokeslammed me from, he's 8 foot tall legit, or right at 8 foot tall. So his arm, has me up in the air. What is that, like another 2 feet? I don't know, 3 feet. Boom, just threw me down like a sack of taters. Knocked me slap out. I mean, when I came to, you see the thing on TV where people like hear phones ringing or flash bulbs going up? Right. Well, it's true. I mean, it was like, the old days, people took a picture with the flash bulb and your eyes get like blinded. That's what I was seeing. I couldn't focus and I heard phones ringing. And the next night we were in Saginaw, and Strongbow says, all right, we want Gonzalez to choke slam you again for TV. I said, no, hell no. He like killed me last night. He goes, well, that's what Vince wants. Well, I went to Vince and I explained to him. And Vince, great guy. Vince said, look, if you're not comfortable with that, what are you comfortable with? I said, let him give me a hard turnbuckle. I can take that big bump. I can either land on my face or land on my back. And I've always been good at that bump. So Vince said, absolutely, pal. That's fine. Whatever you're comfortable with. So I went to Strongbow and I says, no, we're going to do the hard turnbuckle. He goes, oh. And I love Chief too, but he was funny. He goes, oh, so I see you went behind my back. I said, no, I didn't. I went over your head.
That's great. Well, because you traveled with Giant Gonzalez, dude. Right. How was that like when you were hiring cars and stuff? Like, it must have been so uncomfortable for him for like showers, hotel rooms, the beds in the cars. Like, how did he fly? Like, did he fly always in first, or I'm so?
Yeah, he always had to be in first class, aisle seat in first class. We had to rent Cadillac. Cadillac apparently has a seat that goes back further than other, big vehicles. And the Cadillac seat would go back far enough that he could stretch his legs out. So I was in a Cadillac every single day. And as far as hotels, we didn't share a room. I had my own room. But I guess he had to get by the best he could. I never really discussed with him about the showering or whatever. But he was always clean smelling. He wasn't nasty or nappy smelling or nothing. So apparently he knew a way to clean up. Of course, he'd shower in the arenas, which had those big basketball showers, so he was fine with that. He ate a lot, like 8 or 10 turkey sandwiches, 8 or 10 hamburgers.
Really?
And his downfall was he smoked the hell out of them cigarettes, and he just wouldn't stop. And he used to say, me not going to live long life. Me want to enjoy my life.
Well, they say smoking stumps your growth, but clearly not.
Didn't work in his case.
I was just thinking, I don't know why it's crossed my head, but like, if he traveled a lot, if he was flying a lot, can you imagine Giant Gonzalez like trying to use the restroom on an airplane? Like,
oh my God,
it'd be impossible, right? Impossible. He must have held it in the whole time.
Yeah, no, I never thought about that. Yeah, I guess you're right.
Right. Did you know?
I'll tell you what's funny. Remember that suit he used to wear with the Sasquatch fur on it and everything?
Yes. Yeah. How can I forget? Yeah.
Right. So we were somewhere way up in Canada one day, Nova Scotia or something out there. And Jack Tunney had a van to bring us from town A to town B. It was one of those days that had a double shot. Had an afternoon show like in Halifax or whatever, and a night shot like in Moncton. So Jack Tunney had us all picked up in a van, like 5 of us, to bring us from town A to town B. Because not everybody was in both towns. Some of us were. So it was me, Gonzalez, Jim Duggan, Ludwig Borga, and I think Barry Horowitz in a van. And that's what brought that up. We talked about using a bathroom. Duggan or somebody had to use the bathroom. So they had the van guy pull over and we were still in our wrestling attires. We were just getting to the next town. Gonzalez was in his full outfit. And this is in Canada, up in the mountains and shit. Duggan says, hey, Gonzalez, next time a car comes by, I want you to run out of the woods and put your hands on it.
Pretend he's real, yeah.
I said, hell no, Joe, or something like these Canadians are going to think you're the Bigfoot. They're going to kill you.
Oh, jeez. It must have been like any time you with Giant Gonzalez, like it must have just looked like the circus coming into town. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm assuming everyone must have just looked at him and just,
right.
Oh my God, yeah. Everywhere we went. But he didn't mind. He was a friendly giant. I love that guy. God bless him. Great guy.
So yeah, it's so funny how you manage all these giants. So it's another guy I wanted to ask you about. So for a short period, you managed Brian Clark, Adam Bomb.
Yeah, I love that guy.
Oh,
yeah. How was Sam's a big fan of Adam Bomb as well, right? So
yeah, but I didn't know
gimmicks.
Of course, yeah, I know. I can't help it.
Yeah,
I'm a sucker for that sort of thing. Yeah,
Bruno was with Adam Bomb. How do you remember how that whole like gimmick came about and Brian Clark working for the company? Like, were you involved in that?
What happened was they first put him with the guy who's now known as Raven, but Johnny Polo was his master. And Brian, Adam Bomb, wanted to be more serious. But Raven would come to the ring with the slippers shaped like ducks, and had the funny hat. Great guy, cool gimmick. Nothing against Raven or Polo at the time. Good friend of mine. But that ain't what Brian wanted. He wanted a manager like me to make him look bigger and talk with my rough voice and all that, not come out with duck shoes on, whatever. So that's how that came about. The best story I can tell you about Adam Bomb, me, my other dear friend that I traveled with for years, Brooklyn Brawler, Steve Lombardi. Me, Lombardi, Adam Bomb, Randy Savage, and Alundra Blaze, Medusa, were in the airport in Heathrow in London. That's when all the airports were shut down because the IRA had shut bombs at Heathrow or something. So we were there trying to go home. We were through with the tour, ready to come home, but the airport was shut. And we were up there trying to find out what airport can we go to. And they said, well, we can put you in a shuttle to Glasgow, Scotland. And there's it'll take, I don't remember how many hours or whatever. You can probably fly out of there. And what is it, like 5 hours or something like that? Or
maybe there might be a quick train, but maybe 5-6 hours. Yeah, maybe longer. Sam.
So we were all like, oh, maybe we should do that, or we'll never get home. So don't forget, this is Heathrow Airport. It's a madhouse. Everybody's stranded. IRA is up to their tricks. So Brian Clark was like way off to the side somewhere, and me and Savage and Lombardi are over here. And they said, well, if you want to put your group on this shuttle down to Glasgow, so we need to check with our other guy. My dumb ass in the middle of Heathrow, and I was like, Bomb! Hey, Bomb!
No.
Oh my God.
I mean, those damn security were gathered around us. I said, oh my God. I would explain to them. His name's Adam Bomb.
That's just, oh boy. I do actually, sorry. Adam Bomb, Brian Clark, like he always had like an amazing look, and like he looked like a superhero, right? He was jacked and he was pretty good in the ring and stuff, right? Like, why do you think he didn't sort of make it further in the WWF, like as a main event or anything?
I think it was just timing. I think it was just timing more than anything else. At that point, there were so many top guys when he was there. Brett and Sean and Yokozuna and Lex Luger and just A to Z. So many. It was just getting kind of lost in the shuffle. I don't think he ever did anything to get heat with nobody. And there's nothing wrong with his work. It was at that period of time. It was just timing. And, as you know better than anybody, timing in our business is everything. Yes. And I just think the timing wasn't there. He just wasn't in the right place at the right time. But he made a good living. And he did okay. And he went on to other things. And he's a really hell of a guy. And I have nothing but positive things to say about him.
Awesome.
You didn't just manage these legends, though, did you? I remember your transition to refereeing, and I remember like the on-camera like storyline part of that. I should say, so when we watch these pay-per-views, and we obviously watch them to review them on the podcast, anytime a referee or an official kind of slips up, makes a mistake or something, I can't help but to just like dig into it. And part of that's real because I'm a stickler for rules and order. But for like a bit, if you want to call it that, the reason why I really kind of like hit it home is kind of inspired by Harvey Wippleman.
Okay.
And because I remember you have like the notepad and you're just like auditing the integrity of the officials. It's just like the funniest thing. But that was like on camera, and I know it was like for a storyline, but you really did kind of officiate for a good stint, right?
For a little while.
Yeah.
Then the problem with that is, which it's nobody's fault, but just the way things were. I was used to refereeing the Memphis way. The WWE way was completely different. But by that point, I had been in the business 30 years or whatever. Right. And it was just, I wasn't going to be able to revert and retrain myself. You know, I was used to calling spots in the ring. I was used to doing things the way I wanted to. I was used to pulling myself up with the top rope, you know, and WWE doesn't like that. I did the best I could. I didn't hit the mark as a referee in that style. And it's nobody's fault. It's just the way it was. And I respect that and understand that, you know.
What was the main differences in the style then? Was it just
I was wondering like
that planning in WWE or
more planning and less ad lib, you know, whereas which I'm sure we'll get into here shortly, when I refereed in Memphis is I helped some of these young guys in the ring. In fact, my best friend, Dwayne Johnson, I refereed 95% of his matches when he was in Memphis, learning to develop to get to where he ended up being. And I would call stuff to him in the ring. I would talk to him and tell him stuff. And that was what I was better at. Not necessarily the physical refereeing part, but one thing about me, I didn't get by on my good looks and my huge size. But I've always had a very good psychology for the business. That's how I made my living. Right. I was good. And Dwayne will tell you himself, we're best friends. We'd be in the ring. And just for example, say a guy was working on his leg for 10 minutes getting the heat. When he was going to make his comeback, he'd be running the ropes. I'd say, hey, dum-dum, what, your leg don't hurt no more, Superman? And then he'd remember, oh, yeah, and he starts, and things like that, you know. But that's what I was good for. Not so much being a physical referee, because there was a lot of great referees in WWE. Mike Chioda, God bless him, Joey Morello, the guy that died in basically in my arms. A bunch of great referees. But, you know, my thing more was to be able to help the guys in the ring. Well, time they get to the WWE level, you don't need no help. You're already in the NFL or the Major League Baseball or NHL, whatever. You know what I mean? You're
for sure. For sure. So Bruno, I have to ask you this: how did it come around for you to become in 2000 the WWF Women's Champion? I'm sure you knew this question was coming, but I've got to ask you about it because I'm sure people. This might be one of the things because wrestling was so hot in 2000 and the WWF was so big. I'm sure you get asked about this all the time, right?
Oh yeah, I don't mind. Hell, it's like this here. Basically, nobody told me this, but I already know it. Here's the deal: the championship was on the Cat, who at the time was Jerry King Lawler's wife. She's a beautiful young lady. I haven't seen her lately. I'm sure she still looks great, but she was really young and beautiful then. They wanted to put the championship on Jacqueline, who we talked about a while ago, who was stout and stiff and, you know, could literally hurt you if she wanted to. And sometimes would even if she didn't want to, you know. So she just worked really snug. Well, if they put her in the ring with Stacy, Stacy would end up with a black eye and a busted lip or whatever. So throw in this tackling dummy here. So that's basically what that was, just to get the championship off of Stacy and onto her without Stacy getting hurt. And it was fine. And I, to this day, when people ask me about my career, I say, yes, I was the WWF champion of the world. I leave off the women's part, but
only in wrestling. It's, you know, you talked about Jacqueline. How, like, so you crossed with her in Memphis, right? And obviously the WWF.
Right.
Last week, actually, on the show that we reviewed, she wrestled Disco Inferno on the show that we were watching. Did you have good things to say about her? Like, I know she was obviously a great worker. Did you get on well with her?
She rocks.
Oh, yeah, she's cool. I'm very close with her. I mean, we always got along great. We traveled together some. We worked together a million times in Memphis. Most of the time when I work with her, I say, Jesus Christ, are you mad at me? Lighten up. I got into this business because it's me, not because I'm going to get my ass beat.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm crazy about her. I have nothing but good things to say about her. And then I don't know Glenn Gilberti well, but anytime I've met him, Disco Inferno, great guy. I love that guy. Every time I've met him, he's been super respectful and super nice and great guy.
Yeah, it's funny. Disco Inferno is another person that I feel like a lot of people give a hard time to, but every time I've dealt with him or hung out with him, I think he's great,
Yeah, super guy. There's a lot of super guys in our business, there's a lot of pricks too, not just in our business, but any business. But you know what?
Right.
Let's dwell on the good ones, except Eric Cambrima. I'll never forgive him.
Yeah,
That's the one guy I don't mind being negative about, unless he apologizes to me.
So, Bruno, it's funny, right? I think if you asked every man in the world who would they like to be their best friend, I think the majority of answers, the number one answer would probably be Dwayne Johnson.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And you literally have that spot, like, whatever reason. I mean, I say for whatever reason, like growing up, The Rock was like my number one. And The Rock, even when he's a heel in like WWF in 98, 99, and I'm like 9 or 8, 9, 10, he was still my favorite, even though he was a bad guy and I wasn't supposed to like him. And of course, since then, he's just obviously accomplished so much and everything else. Obviously, you've seen all that growth with Dwayne Johnson from being a teenager to being, arguably the most famous man in the world.
Right.
How has that been to watch someone that, again, that must be so odd, just to like, he's a teenage guy and then you literally watch him grow into like the most famous person in the world. That's so interesting to think about, huh?
Oh, yeah. I couldn't be more proud of him. It couldn't have happened to a better guy. We go back to the early 80s. When he was a kid, I was basically his babysitter. And then as he got into it a little bit older, he could drive. He would drive me around where I could drink beer. And I say we stole a car. We didn't break into a guy's car and steal it. We took Bob Owens' keys one night and took his car because Rocky took my keys and said, Bruno, you and my son ain't going to get out there and drive around all night. Give me your keys. Give me your keys. So when him and Bob Owens fell asleep in the hotel, we stole Bob Owens' keys and went driving around. So in a way, we stole his car, but in a way, we didn't. You know what I mean?
Right.
But yeah, we go, oh my God, we've had so many wonderful times together. And he lived with me back when he was a high schooler. And then he came back and lived with me again here in Walls when he broke into business. And he portrayed all that on the Young Rock TV show and did it with a lot of accuracy. Here's what kills me. The one thing, well, first of all, did y'all watch Young Rock when it came out?
I've watched a bunch of Young Rock. Yeah, I haven't seen all of it, but I've watched a bunch, yeah.
Well, did you see the episode where Ryan Pinkston, great guy, the actor that plays me,
yes,
sitting in his bathroom eating?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, that's a bunch of crap.
That's what you're doing now.
Yeah, and now look at you. Yeah.
Sitting in my bathroom eating. I've lived in this house for 35 years. This is the first time I've ate in the bathroom.
Well, there we go. This is all new and first today. It's great.
Yeah.
Just with Dwayne Johnson or The Rock, whatever you want to call him, what do you think is like the key to his success? Because obviously he just totally dominated wrestling, and then transitioning into Hollywood is not the easiest thing. And there's been many people that have tried and been unsuccessful.
Right.
He's done it and somehow just completely smashed it. And now he has, so many other things going on. Like, I honestly think if he run to be president, he'd probably win in this country. What do you think is like, what makes him different to everyone else? And like, what's his key to success, do you think?
Well, I'll tell you several things. First is he's extremely intelligent. I mean, very smart guy. Very few people are rich or successful without being intelligent. Even if you're born into a rich family, once your family dies or God forbid whatever, and it's all on you, if you're an idiot, you're going to lose it.
Yeah,
right.
but he's extremely driven for the fact, and he said this not only to me, but I've heard him say it on interviews and whatnot. He was driven to the fact that he was broke and he don't ever want to be broke again. You know, of course he wouldn't be now. There's nobody, you know, but I'm just saying that was his drive. Nobody wants to be broke, but he was broke. All he had was $7. And before we get off this podcast, which I'm in no rush, I'm enjoying the hell out of it. I'll walk my phone into the other room, and if I can figure out how to show it to you, I've got a plaque on my wall in there that he sent to me, with me and him standing together when he was first starting out, and a little what do you call it? You know, engraving, I guess the word is. It said, you know, roughly, Bruno, thank you for everything. I'll never forget it. There's a $5 bill and 2 ones. And he was like, that was his way to say, hey, you were there for me when that's all I had, you know. And it almost brings tears to my eyes.
Dude, I must admit, well, 2 questions or 2 points. I was going to ask you if you still have the Ford 150.
Lord, yeah, I'm gonna have that till the day I die. It's right in front of my house right now.
That's amazing.
It's sitting right out there. I don't drive it much. I drive it like once a week. I want it to seriously last me the rest of my life. I mostly drive. Well, when I go out of town, I drive rental cars, of course. But just running around walls or up to Memphis, I'm in my Dodge Ram. And working on my property, I put lawnmower in the back of it or whatever, you know. I'm certainly going to put it in my Dwayne truck, which is what I call it. But oh yeah, that truck's right out there, and it's going to last me to the day I die. That's he gave it to me brand new for Christmas in 2020. Here it is, almost Christmas of 2023. I've got roughly 19,000 miles on it, which is nothing.
Right. I must admit, like, yeah, I teared up watching that video. It's just like, I don't know, I just thought it was so cool. Do you know what I mean? Like, well, what a nice, kind guy. Do you know what I mean?
It meant a lot to me, and it wasn't the truck; it was the thought and the you know, it meant the world to me. And he means the world to me. His mother, Otto, was like a mother to me. Rocky Johnson was like a strange kind of father to me, because, you know, he was like my real dad. You know, would have said, hey, don't be drinking. Rocky's like, pick up the pace. You know, Rocky practically raised me. You know, I love Rocky and that whole family. We're family, you know.
Did you, I think last time I saw you, we were talking about this, because you've also worked on quite a few of The Rock's sets for, like, I assume, like Young Rock and maybe his movies as well, have you? Or
not the movies, just the Young Rock.
Okay, Young Rock, yeah. And what were you doing on there?
Well, here's the thing. Before it even started taping or filming for season 2, which is when they progressed him into being in Memphis, they had hired a great young actor that I became very close friends with to this day, named Ryan Pinkston, to play me. So I was in Zoom meetings with me, Ryan Pinkston, and like the head writers and the producers and directors or whatever, you know, all the people dealing with the show, to show Ryan. You know, Ryan had to learn my mannerisms. I mean, he watched a lot of YouTubes of me and you know whatnot to understand my character. But he also wasn't just being my character; he was being like the real me, you know, on the show too. Right. So he had to learn, like we're doing now, like learn my accent and learn my mannerisms and whatnot, and my voice, which he did a tremendous job of. Because I could have said, no, he's not the one, you know, and I had the right to, and Dwayne and the producers put that on me. But I said, no, he was the one. I mean, he's a little bit shorter than me, and a little bit heavier than me, but who gives a damn? It ain't like he's playing, you know, George Bush or somebody that everybody knows. Outside of Memphis, people kind of know me, but you know what I mean? Who cares? Right. He did a great job, and just a tremendous guy. So that was my role in Young Rock, was executive consultant, my official role, which was just to give them insight about how Memphis wrestling worked and what we did in Memphis, and for Ryan to, like I said, learn my way of acting and speaking and whatnot. Because Ryan's from up north, and as an actor, he has to have different accents. Like one time he played a Boston guy, and he sounded just like a Boston guy because those actors know how to do that.
Right.
Well, a lot of times, which really gets me, when a guy portrays a Southern person, they'll talk like this. Hey, y'all. I don't talk that way. So, and I had to make sure that Ryan understood, we have certain mannerisms and things we say, but we don't all talk like Gomer Pyle,
Right.
And he did a great job at that. So then that season they filmed in Australia because that's when COVID was at its height in the pandemic.
That's right.
So I had a lot of Zoom meetings with them way over there. Well, the next season 3, they filmed right here in Memphis. So I was at the set damn near every day. Right. And my main job that I was getting paid for, it was to eat that catering. Because they had So my main job was to eat the catering, hang out with Ryan and the other great guys that I became close friends with on the set, and bring leftovers home. And that was like a wonderful job for me.
Oh, another dream job.
Leftovers home.
Yeah.
I'm sure like when you started in the wrestling business, like I'm sure you never could have predicted that. Oh, all these years later, like someone will be playing me, an actor will be playing me, on a TV show, a hit TV show. Like looking back at your career, sort of everything you've done, earlier we mentioned main event in WrestleMania, and obviously, you worked for the WWE for so many years and everything else, and all the big names that you've worked with or managed. Like when it's all kind of said and done, like what do you think you would most like to be remembered for? Or like what would you say was your biggest sort of accomplishment that stuck out to you?
Well, in all honesty, having an actor play me on a hit network TV show was quite an accomplishment and quite an honor.
Right.
And being main event, being part of the main event. I don't want people to think you know what I mean. But
no, you're in the main event. You're in the main event.
Yeah,
for us, you are.
Great accomplishment. But two things. The thing I was explaining to you earlier, like back in the old Memphis days, when I couldn't even go to the store without being mobbed. Right. That will always stand out. Always. Those days. They'll never be replicated, But honestly, and it might sound like a cop-out, but I'm being truthful. The thing that means the most to me, if you want to, you say, what would I like to be remembered for or by, is that when people talk about me, especially, hopefully years and years from now, but when I'm dead and gone, that people will say, he was always a good guy. He was always straightforward. He was always nice and helpful, and he was loyal and the good things. I became friends with you when I met you, because you're a good guy, and I feel like I'm a good guy. And I hope that nobody can ever say that I wasn't a good guy, because I've always tried to be my whole career, and not even in my life. I want to be remembered as somebody that was really a good person. We've all made mistakes. We've all sinned and fell short of the glory of God, and we've all done things that we should have been arrested for, might have been arrested for, but like me, back in the early 80s, I thought I was 10 feet tall and bulletproof. I went to jail twice for this. DUI. Got popped for a DUI the first time. Crashed my car into a pole in northeast Memphis. Second DUI, my car was in the body shop. I didn't have no car. Well, a dear friend of mine, God rest his soul, Eddie Gilbert, said, well, Bruno, I got another car that, I'm not using right now. You can use it until your car gets fixed. Well, the way I thanked him was I got popped in Eddie Gilbert's car. So I'll never forget it. I called Eddie Gilbert from 201 Poplar, which is the Memphis City Jail. I said, Eddie, I'm in jail. Your car's been impounded. He goes, ha, ha, ha. Nah, where you at really, Bruno? I said, Eddie, I've got popped for DUI. Your car's been impounded. About that time, he heard like a cell block 3, lockdown, bam. He goes, oh, my God. So Eddie came downtown Memphis. I thought he was going to kill me, but he didn't. He came and bailed me out. we went out to Flicker Street, which is where they used to impound the cars in Memphis. Got his car. Between the time I got popped and the time we got his car, somebody stole his tape deck, which back then it was,
That's a big deal, yeah.
Stole all his tapes and everything. I thought he was going to kill me, but he didn't, because he knew I didn't mean to, but it was a stupid thing I did. So we've all did stupid things. So I'm not putting myself on this pedestal like I'm this church angel, because I try to be a good person and a Christian man, but I've screwed up, and that was my biggest screw up.
Yeah,
that was my biggest screw up.
But the thing is, like, you learn from it and you move on, huh?
Yep. I mean, I can drink more. Honestly, I can drink beer from now till bedtime and drive a school bus. I never get drunk. I wouldn't do it. First of all, illegal and stupid, but I'm saying it doesn't get me drunk per se. But I wouldn't get in the car and drive. Somebody said, "Hey, come down here. I'll give you $5,000." I said, "Come pick me up."
Yeah, it's not worth it. Yeah,
it's not worth it. And the thing is, and this is God's honest truth. Both times I got my DUI. This is no joke. I wasn't drunk legally. Yeah, over the limit. I wasn't, slurring or weaving around. What it was, both times it was just a pullover for another reason, and I happened to be drinking. The first one I crashed into the pole.
Right.
What happened?
I mean,
yeah.
Hang on, let's hear this.
You got to hear me out. I was in an old crappy car. Okay, it wasn't my car. I was at Muggs Beer Joint in Northeast Memphis. My car, I got a decent car, Toyota Tercel back then. It was blocked in. They didn't have no cigarette machine at Muggs. Everybody was sending me to get cigarettes. I said, well, I used to smoke then. I wouldn't smoke now. But this guy let me take his car to the store to get cigarettes. As I was driving down Raleigh LaGrange Road, something happened to his heater core. The whole windshield completely fogged up like somebody threw white paint over it. No kidding. I would have crashed into that pole if I hadn't had a single beer.
Right.
It was, honestly, I couldn't see nothing. Nothing. It just...
Scary.
Yeah, so I crashed into the pole. The second time, when I was in Eddie Gilbert's car, I had no vehicle. My vehicle was in an accident. It had nothing to do with the DUI. I had an accident in my vehicle. I was in Eddie Gilbert's car, and it was a Super Bowl Sunday. They were doing a roadblock, stopping everyone. And I happened to be, drinking.
Yeah, they're probably checking for it. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and hey, just so everybody knows, this shirt I'm wearing.
I was going to say, plug your stuff.
It's a nice shirt, yeah.
Yeah, that's the shirt. Well, then no, this isn't what I'm plugging. This is the one that the Make Believe Wrestling organization that we use on Young Rock.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
So that's the one that we wore on there. But if anybody wants a Downtown Bruno shirt, excuse me, there's a website or an organization called Pro Wrestling Tees. And I would consider it an honor if anybody would pick up a shirt, Downtown Bruno shirt. There's two versions of it. And, it's not that I'm getting rich off of, but, I would love it if people would wear it.
Absolutely. I think what is that? ProWrestlingTees.com/Downtown Bruno, I assume?
I would assume, yeah.
Yeah, or just go on Pro Wrestling Tees and search Downtown Bruno.
I'll get the link after this, and I'll put the link in the episode description as well, so people
absolutely
can directly.
Sounds good. Well, thanks, fellas, and stay in touch. This was great. I love sitting in my bathroom eating chicken wings and drinking beer.
It sounds like heaven.
That's the best thing ever.
Right?
No, honestly, Bruno. Honestly, thank you so much. You've been so generous with your time. You've been very open and honest today. We really, really appreciate it. Yeah, we consider you a friend of the show now, so we'd love to have you on again at some point. So
stay in touch. Let's be friends off the show too. I'd love it.
Awesome. I will. God bless you, Bruno.
God bless y'all. Good night.
Good night.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Bruno.
boss.
Take care.
You got it.
Okay. What a life that man has lived, huh?
Oh, he's got someone playing him on TV. That's a pretty cool. I always thought that must be really cool to have someone playing you, like the real you. Do you know what I mean?
And he said he has basically final say of who gets to play him. I bet a lot of people don't. So that's nice as well.
Yeah. Well,
pretty cool,
There we have it, guys. There was our exclusive interview with a new friend of the show, Downtown Bruno, aka Harvey Wippleman. I really enjoyed that, man. I love talking to the guys from back in the territory days or back from like the golden era of the WWF. Of course, that was what I was a massive fan of. So I'm really happy about this one. I think it's, and dude, we had him in his restroom eating fried chicken,
drinking a beer in his bathroom. Yeah.
That's
right.
That's very pro wrestling, right? So
yeah,
that's awesome. But yeah, thank you so much, guys. If you made it this far, appreciate you all listening. If you want some more Chilling with the Villain content, hit us up on the YouTube at The Villain Pod, on the TikTok, You Don't Stop, and of course, our Instagram account. I'll say it once and I'll say it again. We have the best wrestling social media going today, and I will debate anyone that suggests anything else. But
we challenge you to find a better one.
We challenge you. I mean, there's some really good YouTube channels. I'll give people that. Okay.
Yes.
Right. But social media pages, we number one. We number one.
We got it.
We do. But yeah, I think that's pretty much all we have time for today, right, Sam?
I definitely think that too. Well, thank you so much.
Oh no, actually, sorry. Leave us a 5-star review, guys, please. Can we get some more 5-star reviews? That'd be nice. That helps us out a lot. So if you enjoyed the show, please give us a 5-star review. Yeah, and if you didn't enjoy the show, I don't know what you'd be doing listening to this part if you didn't enjoy the show.
Right. If you got this far, leave us a 5-star review and we'll read. Yeah.
We'll read out on the show. We'll get a shout out on the show. So yeah, please give us a 5-star review. We really do appreciate it.
It would be amazing. All right, then. Thank you so much, guys, for listening and have a good week. Till next week.